Today, me and Tuck are going to show you what happens when you bury sardines under your tomato plants and let you know if it's worth it or not. Let's go! Recently, I decided to run an experiment where I took 2 tomato plants, both the same age and the same variety, cherry bomb, and decided to plant them a few feet apart. The only difference was, with one tomato, I decided to bury a can of sardines underneath it, while the other one, I didn't. For the first cherry bomb tomato, I just pulled the wood chip mulch back with a rake until I got to the soil level. Then, I dug out a section of soil with a small shovel about 3 times the width of the cup that I was planting from, and about, I'd say 9 or 10 inches deep. Next, I opened the can of sardines, and for this, I used the sardines that have no salt added, and I tried to get ones with as much of the skin and fish parts as possible. I also made sure it was sardines that were in water and not in oil, wild caught and natural. And after that, I then put the whole can of sardines at the bottom of the hole. You can see them down there. Someone mentioned to me that if you sprinkle Epsom salt on the sardines when you bury them, they will break down quicker. So if you want to try this experiment too, it could be a good idea to sprinkle some Epsom salt on top of those sardines. After that, I covered the sardines with about 4 inches of my natural sandy soil, getting it to the right height so it would be perfect for the tomato to set in, and still burying the stem a little bit. After that, I watered the area in so the soil in the sardines had some moisture. Then I put a bit more natural soil on top of that, then some of my homemade soil to finish it off, just so the tomato would have a better time adjusting to its new home. After that, I sprinkled some mycose onto the roots, inoculating the plant with the mycorrhizal association. Then transplanted the tomato into its spot and backfilled with natural soil. After that, I top dressed with a little of my own homemade compost and covered that with some wood chip mulch, then watered the whole thing in and it was done. I never had an issue with any cats or raccoons digging up my sardines. I know some of you will mention that, but there was never a problem. That might be because some of the thick wood chip mulch that I have on the ground here, and also because I have the whole property fenced in relatively well. For the other cherry bomb tomato plant, I followed the same exact procedure, moving the wood chips till I got to the natural soil, then digging into that natural soil and planting into the natural soil, then top dressing with my homemade soil. Except I did not bury sardines underneath this one. This plant acts more as the control for the other one. Now, a few months have passed and let's check out the result of our little experiment. Here are the plants right here. And the reason I planted 2 plants of the same variety, one with sardines under it and one without, is so that I could have a control, which is this plant right here. Essentially, it's just a plant that I can base my results off of. So this is with no additional fertilizer or fish or anything, while this one on the side here is with the additional sardines. So I did this because I don't want to just say that, oh, this works or it doesn't work. I want to have something to be able to compare my results against. So that's why I have the 2 planted right here. The reason I chose sardines as my fertilizer is because fish itself is always known to be a great fertilizer. The Native Americans have used it, a long time ago when they used to bury fish underneath corn. And I thought sardines would be good because it's so easily, readily, and accessible, because most people probably just have them in their cupboards inside, as opposed to something like Manhattan or a fish head and going to get that somewhere. I figured, a lot of people just have the sardines, so it's readily accessible. Also, it doesn't stink as much as some of the fish heads and stuff do, because it's something that we would eat, the sardines. It doesn't have as much as an off-putting smell, in my opinion, and it's a little cleaner to work with. So I thought sardines would be a good substitute for something like a regular fish or a fish head. Here they are. Let's check the plants out in detail and see if there's a considerable difference, and we'll decide whether or not it's actually worth it to bury sardines under your tomato plants. As we step back a little bit, we'll notice that there isn't a huge difference in size, although the one with sardines that I planted under it, which is right here, seems to have overall more growth. You'll notice it's it's taller than the other one, and at the top we have a double top here. So without that double top, this thing would be another foot tall probably. The level of production is really good. As we come down, we'll notice most of this fruit is actually on the back side as opposed to the front side like the other one, but loaded with fruit, excellent. And this tomato did really good through the hot part of the year. We'll notice the ripe fruit down here. And some of the other tomato plants, as we slowly move up, after we look at these tomatoes, you'll notice that we have a lot of full sets here. Some of the other plants had sets where they didn't fruit because it got so hot during the middle part of the summer, but this thing looks like it has just excelled along, and it's got an amazing amount of fruit on it. This is what we love to see. On the other hand, this tomato plant looks like it's doing well also, but it is a little smaller probably because it's lacking a little more nutrition than the other plant. Still happy with this plant overall. I mean, you can't make any complaints. It's a beautiful looking plant. One thing that I'm wondering though is if it's gonna slow down in production as the season progresses, because I didn't add any additional fertilizer around this plant. So as it continues to grow throughout the season and draws nutrition from the soil, I wonder if it's going to deplete the soil too much. On the other hand, this cherry bomb tomato, the one with the sardines planted underneath it, this thing should continue to excel as the season progresses along because it has that additional fertilizer underneath it. So the fish wasn't immediately available for the plant to take in because it's not bioavailable in that natural state. What has to happen is we need a bridge or an intermediary actor, like the microorganisms that are in the soil or the worms or the bacteria or whatever, to break down that fish into a way that's bioavailable for the roots to be able to take it up and this plant to drink it in. So think about that for a second. We're gonna take something, a waste, well, it could be a waste product like a fish, and we're gonna convert that into one of nature's most delicious fresh snacks right here. Tomatoes. I love doing that. And something that's so cool is we're gonna be fertilizing this plant from underneath because we buried that fish. And then if we want, we could also come around and put compost around the plant or even some additional fertilizer. So we could fertilize it from the bottom and the top from both directions. I think that's pretty unique, and I think that's a pretty cool thing about burying the fish. So again, I'm super excited to try one of these tomatoes because I took something that I don't really like that much, fish, and we got a lot of the nutrition from that fish and converted that into something that I love eating and is just so delicious, fresh cherry tomatoes. Let's try one and see if they're actually good. Let's try this cherry tomato right here. Looks beautiful. This is the one which I buried the sardines underneath. So let's see if it maybe has a little bonus flavor compared to the other one, because we'll try the other one as well. Excellent flavor. Let's try the one without sardines underneath it now. Nothing considerable. I can't say that there was like a major difference in flavor, which is not what I'm expecting. My overall verdict would be that yes, you should put sardines underneath some of your tomato plants if you already have them and stuff. So this year, if I buried the sardines underneath it, next year it'll help build the soil and improve the fertility of the soil for the next year too. Because by adding this fish, we're not just getting nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, we're also getting a lot of trace elements that are within the fish that maybe our soil doesn't have. So it's adding more of that stuff, building up the organic matter, and in the end, to take something like a rotten, or not rotten, to take something like a dead fish and convert that into incredible nutrient-dense food, getting the nutrition from the fish and putting that into the tomato, I mean, I think it's a great idea, and I don't think you can really go wrong doing it. Some of you may be wondering if the tomatoes had any fishy flavor to them because I buried the sardine underneath it. I didn't notice any fishy flavor at all, and I'm pretty sensitive to that fishy taste. Another thing you might be wondering is, why didn't I just use some fish fertilizer like this right here? Well, it's a good idea to use this fish fertilizer early, or do what I did and bury the sardine early in the season, but you don't want to use this late in the season because it's so high in nitrogen, as you can see here. If you want to give your plants an extra boost later in the season, you'd want to use something like an all-purpose fertilizer that's balanced. And you could also add in some extra bone meal because the bone meal is high in phosphorus. That's what's going to help your plants with flower production and also fruit production. So I wouldn't add fish fertilizer late. You could use this if you want, but I thought it would be a lot of fun to try to use something that was just like laying around in the house as a form of fertilizer for the tomatoes. That's today's video, growers. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you got something out of it. That was a really fun experiment to run, and me and Tuck have a bunch of other experiments that we're running right now that we'll share with you later in the season or possibly even next year when they're all concluded. Overall, it was just a blast. How cool is it to be able to take a sardine and convert it into a tomato? Nature just blows me away. It's just such a cool thing to do, and I suggest you go out there and try some garden experiments. Even if you think it won't work, as long as it gets you super excited and gets you out into the garden, you'll be spending more time out there, and overall your garden will do better because of that. I think that it was a success putting the sardine under the tomato plant. It didn't hurt. It seemed like it definitely helped, and this year we kind of took that same idea and just added more stuff, buried more stuff under the tomato plant. So the results so far are coming out really cool. I can't wait to share that, but I want the whole thing to be concluded before I actually share it. And in the future video, I'd like to even dig up what I buried and kind of show how much it was broken down over the season to see how much it actually probably potentially contributed to the growth of the tomato and the overall production. Tuck's around here somewhere, but he wasn't in this video too much. It's kind of a hot day right now for him. Look how well the tomatoes are growing this year, the level of production. Look at the style of the lower end leaning. It's how we love growing our tomatoes. And we're always running more experiments to try to see how we can manipulate nature to get more food. Me and Tuck had a blast out here. We hope you guys enjoyed the video. We wanted to send a thank you to one of our new channel members, Daniel Webb. Thanks for being a part of Team Grow. Thanks for having your hand in everything we're doing out here. Remember, go out there, enjoy yourself, get some stuff planted, try something new, whatever gets you to spend more time in the garden. That's what it's all about. And make sure you're just trying to soak it in, all the joy, all the beauty of being out in the garden and all the benefits that come with it. Tuck and James will be back to you again real soon. We out.